Hi everyone, this is Deb and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We've made it all the way down to section 10, and in this section we're going to be talking about graphics and inserting graphical images into our documents to make them more engaging and interesting. Now, in this first module we're going to concentrate on how you can insert pictures into your document. So I just have a blank document open here, and there are actually a couple of ways that you can insert pictures into a document. The first way is if you have a picture saved off to your hard drive, so your local drives essentially, maybe you've saved it to your desktop or into the My Pictures folder, you can insert that into a document. And the second way I'm going to show you is if you want to search for a picture that's available online and insert it directly into your Word document. So let's talk about that first option, inserting a picture that we have saved off locally. Now it's worth noting that where you're currently clicked in your document is where that picture will insert, so just be aware of that. So I'm clicked at the top of my page. I'm going to go to the Insert ribbon, and you'll see in this Illustrations group we have an option for pictures and online pictures, and these are the two things we're going to talk about in this module. So the first one here, pictures, is if you have a picture saved off locally or saved off to a file. So let's click on Pictures. And there we go, it's going to open up your local drives and you can just browse through and go to the location where you have your picture saved off. So I have mine saved into my Images folder, and I'm going to use this picture here, italy.jpg. So I'm going to select it and then click on Insert. And there we go, there's my picture, a picture of beautiful Italy, which is making me very jealous that I'm at home at the moment. And this picture isn't a bad size, but if I wanted to resize this picture, if you look around the outside in the corners and also in the middle, you have these round circles, which we call resize controls or resize handles. So if you want to resize the picture, the easiest way of doing that is just to grab any of these controls and drag your picture in. Now if I hover over this one in the top right hand corner, you can see that I get a little diagonal double-headed arrow, which means that when I drag in, it's going to drag it in diagonally. I could also use the ones on the side here, so if I drag that in, it's actually going to distort my picture very slightly. So I'm going to use my diagonal ones just to drag that picture in and make it a little bit smaller. If I wanted to center this picture on the page, I can just jump up to my Home ribbon and I can use my alignment tools in the paragraph group. So I'm just going to select center to put that picture into the middle of the page. So very simple, just to pick up a picture that you have saved off to your local drives. Let's now look at the second option, which is inserting a picture which is online. So we're going to go back to our Insert ribbon, and this second option here, Online Pictures. So this will allow you to do an image search on Bing based on the keyword that you type into this field at the top. So if I was looking for a picture of Italy, I can type in Italy and I can hit my Enter key and it will go away and it will search for pictures of Italy. Now one thing to note here is this Creative Commons only, which has got a little tick in the checkbox. With images, you have to be careful sometimes with regards to copyright. So you can't just jump onto Google and search for an image and then use it in your document or presentation or whatever you want to use it for. You have to make sure you have permission to use that picture. So what I'm filtering for here in my pictures are for pictures which only have a Creative Commons license, and that means that I can use it with no copyright issues. So I can go in and I can select a picture. So I quite like this first one. I'm going to tick it and click Insert. And there we go, I have my picture. So again, I can just drag those handles in if I want to. And you'll see with these pictures from online, you get a photo credit underneath. So this one is actually author unknown, but it has a license, so we're good to use it. So those are the two ways that you can insert pictures. There is a lot more that we can do with these pictures, which we're going to explore in later modules. In the next module, we're going to talk about how to insert pictures into an existing document that has text. So please join me for that. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We're in section 10 where we're talking about inserting graphics into our documents. And we're down into module 2 now, where we're going to start talking about how you can insert pictures into an existing document that contains text. So in the previous module, we inserted a couple of pictures, but that was just into a blank document. So what's the difference if we already have text in the document? Well, let's find out. So I have my document here, and if I scroll down, you can see that the last section is called Buying a Home. And what I want to do is I want to put an image underneath here. So the first thing to remember is always make sure that your cursor is where you want to insert that image. And I'm going to go and grab a picture that I've got saved off to my local drives. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, I'm going to click on Pictures, and then I'm going to navigate to where I have my image. So I'm going to select New Home.jpg and click Insert. And there we go, there's my picture. Now, I could go about resizing this, so if I wanted it to fit onto the page above, I could try and do that by making it small, but I don't want it to be too small either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this picture from its current location, and I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle of this document. So I'm going to click on my picture, and I'm just going to drag up. And I'm just going to place it just here where I have my cursor and let go of the mouse. Now you see what's happened there. If I make this image a little bit smaller, it's put the image in, and you can see that the text is above it and also below it. So I have this white space over at the side here. Now it might be that you just want to center that image and you're happy with the text above and below, but you need to be aware that there are some other options when it comes to text wrapping. Now, text wrapping utilities. You can see here I have this little square, and if I hover over it, it says layout options. So it says choose how your object interacts with the text around it. So I could click on there. Alternatively, I could go up to my contextual ribbon that's appeared, my picture tools, and the Format sub-tab, and I could go to Wrap Text up here. You'll find that the options you see are pretty much the same in both of these. So currently I have Inline with Text selected. Let me just get rid of that one so it doesn't become too confusing. You can see that because it has grey on that icon. And what Inline with Text means is that it will put the text above and below wherever that picture is. But I do have other options in here as well. I have Square, so if I hover over, you can see what that looks like. So in this one, the text kind of flows around the outside of the picture. If I choose Tight, that actually puts the text a bit tighter to the picture or a bit closer to the picture edge. I have Through. Now if I select Through, it means that if I was to move this picture, so if I move it slightly over, the text kind of runs through the picture, and I always think that makes it quite hard to read, but there might be some instances where you might want to utilize the through text wrapping. We also have Top and Bottom, which again places our text at the top or at the bottom of the picture. We have Behind Text. So again, if I was to put that one on, then the picture is going to appear behind the text, or I can have it in front of text. Now with this one, it kind of hides whatever is behind it. So again, you really need to make sure that you choose the correct one depending on your document. So for this one, I think I'm going to have Square. And again, you might want to do some minor adjustments when you get this, because I don't particularly like this line just here being sort of on its own. It looks a bit detached. So I could fix that by, I could make the picture bigger, or I could make the picture a bit smaller and try and get that all onto one line. So it really is up to you how you want to deal with that. So I might want to make it like that, which makes everything all nice and square and neat looking. So those are your text wrapping options. It's definitely worth having a play around with those so you can get your text to flow exactly how you like, around or through or in front of that picture. In the next module, we're going to explore some other options that you have when it comes to pictures, because there are so many of them. So please join me for that. Hi guys, this is Deb and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We are now down in section 10, module 3, And in the previous sections, we've been talking about inserting pictures from files or from the internet. And we've also talked about inserting them into existing documents and getting the text to flow nicely around those pictures. Now we're going to talk about the options that we have when working with pictures, because there are so many of them on that contextual ribbon. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a picture into my document. And again, this is one that I have saved off to my local drive. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to select Pictures. And I'm going to choose this one here, cabin.jpg. And there we go. So this is quite a nice picture of a cabin in the woods. I'm just going to make it very slightly smaller. And I'm also going to center that on my page. Now, when you're working with pictures, you'll notice that you get this Picture Tools contextual ribbon, and we should know what these contextual ribbons are all about now. They only appear when we need them. So when I'm clicked on my picture, I get this Picture Tools ribbon with the Format sub-ribbon. And it's on this sub-ribbon that you'll see all of the options that are needed for editing this picture in your document. And we're going to go through some of these options now. Now I'm going to start with this big group in the middle, the one that says Picture Styles. And if I click this drop down, you'll see that there are numerous different styles that you can apply to change the look and feel of your picture. So if I just hover over some of these so you can sort of get an idea of what they look like, we have some simple frames at the top in white, so they add quite a nice effect. This one I quite like, which is the rounded rectangle, and that has a reflection on it as well, which gives a really nice effect. And we have some soft edges and some shadows, and we can even change things like the perspective as well of the shadow. And we can tilt the picture back, we can change the shape, all kinds of things that we can do in here. So just be aware that you have those picture styles which you can play around with. Next to that, we have three options: Picture Border, Picture Effects, and Picture Layout. Now, this would be if you want just more of a standard plain border. So sometimes you might just want a black border around the outside of your picture. So I'm going to select black from the palette. And I'm also going to go in and I'm going to change the weight of that border as well. So it's a little bit easier for us to see. So I'm going to change that to 3 points. And then you can see we just have a really nice, simple black border around the outside. Picture Effects allows you to add things like a shadow if you wanted one. Some of these are quite subtle and quite hard to see, but you should be able to see we now have a little bit of a shadow across the bottom of that picture. We also have some inner shadows, and we also have some perspective shadows as well. And some of these can be quite dramatic looking, but just be aware that you have shadow options. We have options for reflection, so we saw that in one of the picture styles. These can look really effective actually, so we have quite a few different ways that we can add a reflection. We could add a glow around the outside if we wanted to, and you've got more colours for your glow down here as well. We might want to add some soft edges to our picture, and again, some of these are more dramatic than others. We could also add a bevel effect to our picture. And finally, we have a 3D rotation. So if I wanted to, I could rotate this picture in all different kinds of ways. So that can sometimes be quite nice as well. So definitely worth jumping into Picture Effects and having a little play around with those options. We then have Picture Layout. Now, this might be if you want to create something that looks quite nice with some text over the top, and we have different layouts here. So if I hover over them, you can see the different ways that you can display picture with a text. And we're going to be looking at something called Smart Art a little bit later on, and you'll see that these are pretty much the same as Smart Art. Now, that's quite a nice one if you're doing a document, is to have that transparency running across the top of the picture. So again, definitely worth having a little play around with all of the options within Picture Layout. Now, a lot of the other options on this toolbar we've already looked at in previous modules. So we have things like we can change the position, we can wrap the text, we can align, which we'll look at a little bit later, And we can also adjust the height and width of our picture manually. So instead of dragging these corners in, we could type in a specific height and a specific width to resize this picture. Let's jump back to this first group here because I do want to show you this remove background utility. So if we hover over, you can see it says automatically remove unwanted portions of the picture. Now, this would be useful if, for example, I wanted to remove the background from this picture. So maybe I want to get rid of all these trees and grass, and I just want a picture of this little tiny cabin. So let's see how it works, because this can be a little bit tricky. So we're going to click on Remove Background. And what Word will do is it will do its best to work out what you want to remove. But a lot of the time, it can't really ascertain what's background and what you want to keep. So it makes a bit of a guess. And in purple are all the things it's currently going to remove. And you can adjust this to either keep certain areas or remove certain areas. So you'll see now we have this background removal toolbar at the top. So I can choose to mark areas to keep or mark areas to remove. Now I need to remove more of these trees. So I'm going to say mark areas to remove. And you just kind of draw the pencil over the area that you want to remove. And as I said, sometimes it doesn't get it quite right and you have to fiddle around with this quite a bit to get it just perfect. It actually looks pretty good so far. Let's do the same on this side. That's actually not too bad. Now, if I was being really detail orientated, I could go and say mark areas to keep and just draw a line across the bottom of this cabin because I can see that's in purple and I actually want to keep that bit. There we go. Now I could carry on and make this absolutely perfect, but for purposes of demonstration and time, I'm just going to keep it as it is. So once I'm happy with it, I'm going to click on the tick to say keep changes. And there we go. It's cut out that background. As I said, you can be a little bit neater with this than I've been. Now my border looks a little bit strange just out there on its own. So I'm going to turn that border off by clicking picture border. And I'm going to say no outline. And there we go. Now a couple of other things I want to mention before we move on to the next module. Let's click on the picture again, go back to our format ribbon. You do have some correction options as well, and this is a lot of the time related to the color and the contrast and the sharpness of your image. So we have some options to sharpen up our image across the top here. And we also have some brightness and contrast images. So again, if I hover over, you can see that that changes the brightness on this picture. The next one along is color. So if I want to recolor this picture or change the color of it, I can do that just by selecting any of these options. And you do have more colors or more variations under this option at the bottom. And then finally, we have artistic effects. So I find that I don't use these very often, but you might find a situation where you might need to. But this is where you can kind of change your picture to look like a drawing or a mosaic or a painting or some scribbling, something along those lines. So again, these are all options that you can have a play around with. The final three in this group are quite important. So compress picture. Now, one thing you need to be aware of with pictures in Word is that if you do add quite a few pictures into your document, that's going to make your document size increase. Now, in order to make sure that your document is as small in size as possible so that everything loads really fast and you don't get any lag issues, it's always a good idea to compress your pictures in your document. And we have the option for that just here. If I click on Compress Pictures, it will ask me, do I want to apply compression only to this picture that I have selected? So if I only have one picture, that's fine. If I had a lot of pictures in the document, I would untick that because then it will compress everything in the document. I also have an option here that says delete cropped areas of a picture. So what that means is we got rid of the background on this picture, but we haven't actually got rid of it. I could quite easily just reverse what I did with remove background and bring it back. So essentially the background is still in the document, even though we can't see it. And what this option will do is it will say it will delete any cropped areas of the picture. So again, that will help take that file size down. So just be aware of that compress pictures option. We then have an option to change picture. So if I want to replace the picture I currently have with something else, either from a file, from an online source, or from an icon, then I can do that. And then if I want to just reset my picture, so if I've made a lot of changes to it and I think actually, you know what, I don't want any of them, I can reset the picture back to how it was originally. So a whole host of options in that Picture Tools ribbon when it comes to modifying and editing any pictures that you have in your document. So that about wraps it up for pictures. We're going to move on to the next module now, where I'm going to show you how to apply some of these same options to shapes. So I'll see you over there.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so that you get notified about similar videos we upload. Now, to get the full Microsoft Word 2019 course, including follow-along exercise files, click over there. And click over there to watch all the videos in this Word 2019 playlist.